Okay, Dr. Mindy here, and I want to talk, I've said this before, I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is balancing hormones. So I know that there's a lot of you on my YouTube channel here that are looking to try to come to keto and fasting as a tool for balancing progesterone and estrogen and your hormonal issues during perimenopause and menopause and even postmenopause. And what I want to really emphasize in this video for you is that those of us in the 40, 50, 60 range of our life, we actually need to do keto and fasting totally different. So a lot of what I'm seeing in my Resetter tribe on Facebook is that people get so excited about the possibility of losing weight with keto and fasting. And I'm going to tell you, it's phenomenal for if you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. But when we're looking at the hormonal picture, there's so much more to control than just insulin. So the purpose of this YouTube Live is really to give you guys some concrete tools. And I've done a lot of videos on it. Fasting, what do you do if your hair comes out? Things like that, I think are important things to address. But what I want to do today is give you a framework in which if you're a 40, 50, or 60-year-old woman and you want, or even beyond, if you want to do keto and fasting, what do you need to think about? Okay, so this is how my brain thinks. I think in big picture first, and then I start to think in details. So let me give you the big picture of hormones. So we have our sex hormones, and then we have what I call our control hormones. So our sex hormones, the major ones are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So most women, when they go to control their hormones, they go after those three. So a lot of you that are on HRT, if you're on bioidenticals, you're really focused at trying to balance those three. And yes, we need to be focused on them, and I'm going to give you some ideas around how you can balance those. But there are these three control hormones that I really feel like very few people are talking about. And I'm a huge lover of reading and studying, so I want to pass on, as I learn information, I want to pass on that information to you guys. So two game-changing books for me on balancing hormones. One is The Rushing Woman Syndrome that Dr. Libby Weaver wrote. Highly recommend this book. She did a TED Talk that's phenomenal. You can go just search her name, Libby Weaver. What Dr. Weaver brought to our attention is that if cortisol goes up, so you're under stress, you're rushing around, what's going to end up happening is we're over here on these sex hormones that that progesterone will go down. So it doesn't matter what herb you take, it doesn't matter what medication you take to try to balance these sex hormones. What Dr. Weaver points out is that if cortisol is too high, you're going to throw off progesterone. Once progesterone's down, estrogen gets out of control, testosterone can get low, and all those hormones will go out of balance. So I think it's really important that if you're using keto and fasting and you're losing weight, but you got stuck, the first step I'm going to encourage you to do is look at cortisol. Where are you overstressed? Where can you understress or not stress so much? What tools do you have to handle stress? So make sure that you're not trying to achieve something amazing with your hormones while living this crazy, over-rushed life. Now, I will tell you that when I work personally with a patient one-on-one, when we're working with our people in the Reset Academy, I'm giving them tools for cortisol and trying to give people some ideas, because if you're like me, I like a full life. I don't want to necessarily rush, but I don't live a boring life. I want to keep on the move all the time. So there are some really cool strategies you can use for cortisol. And if you want to join me in my academy, just put academy and we'll invite you in over there. The other piece of this, though, that was brought to my attention by this woman, Dr. Anna Cabeca. I interviewed her on Resetter TV. The second episode that will air tomorrow, depending upon when you're watching this live. Go and watch that interview, because what she so brilliantly points out is that we also need to keep in balance oxytocin. And I love the analogy she uses. She says oxytocin is like the dean of the school. The professors are insulin and cortisol, and the students are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So, how does this pertain to you? How does this pertain to the keto diet? If you want to balance estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, the very first step is let's come over here and let's look at these control hormones. I'm putting a video out next week on oxytocin, so stay tuned for that. Cortisol. Like I said, Get Rushing Woman Syndrome. Fabulous book. Insulin. So many of you have been following Dr. Fung's work, and you know that keto and fasting will help you balance insulin. So start there. That's your foundation. Now, once you're working on balancing those three, let's talk about your sex hormones, and let's pertain them, let's put them in the framework of keto and fasting, because I think, again, this is so important. When you've been fasting a long time, when you've been doing keto a long time, what ends up happening is that that low sugared life can start to make it so that both estrogen and progesterone can get really low. So it doesn't matter if you're over there controlling these, that progesterone specifically gets really low. So here's a very simple recommendation I have for you. If you still have a cycle, you're going to thrive at keto and fasting from the first day that your cycle starts. So from the first day you bleed all the way up till about day 21. In that time period, you're going to do fabulous. It's the week before your cycle starts that you need progesterone. So you need to stop stressing, work on stress, and you need to eat progesterone-rich foods. So those foods are some of my favorite foods that you will never hear a keto expert tell you about. Beans, potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, quinoa, rice, citrus fruit, tropical fruit. And yes, I am telling you that for 3 weeks out of the month, you are going to go keto and fast, and you will thrive. And 1 week out of the month, I am really encouraging you to eat those smart carbs that will raise progesterone. I have watched that little routine right there balance so many women's hormones out. And it's because we are allowing progesterone to be built in your body. So make sure you're eating to fuel your progesterone, that you're not just staying keto and fasting all the time. Okay. Second thing, you guys, a lot of you watched my video on the hair loss. So I talked about a 5-1-1. For some of you who are a little more nervous about going a whole week of doing progesterone building foods that may take you out of ketosis, you can follow a 5-1-1. 5-1-1 looks like this. 5 days a week you're doing keto. 1 day a week and you're intermittent fasting. 1 day a week you're doing keto and you're doing a longer fast, like a OMAD, like a 24-hour fast. And 1 day a week you're feasting. But you're not feasting on McDonald's, you're not feasting on crappy food. You are feasting on these progesterone-rich foods. If you have a major hormone imbalance, you might take 2 days that you feast. But it's this variation is the key. That way you can get the benefit of the keto lifestyle and the fasting lifestyle, but you're still building your hormones. Okay, third thing that a lot of you have asked, what does a feast day look like? Okay, so for me, Sunday is my feast day and Monday is my fast day. I fast all day on Monday. So Sunday, we go to the farmer's market here locally, and I am absolutely obsessed with squashes right now. So we have this little honey-cut squash where I live, and it tastes like pumpkin pie when I cook it. I love it. So I will have a bunch of squashes. I will have sweet potatoes. I will cut up regular potatoes. I will even on that day have some gluten-free treats. So I'm not a fan of gluten, but on that day, if I want to actually have some gluten-free bread, that would be my day to have gluten-free bread. rice, quinoa, beans. I did this past Sunday. For my family, I did a chili with beans in it, and I did gluten-free cornbread, and that was my feast day. And I think I hear this a lot. I know in my resetter tribe that a lot of people go, well, I feel guilty when I do that. No. The human body, especially the woman's body, is meant to have this variation so that you can actually build up your hormones and not always deplete them. If you're doing keto all the time, then you're depleting them. Okay, so I really hope that works. I will tell you, a lot of people ask me, like, what do you eat on a regular basis? So if you follow me on Instagram, that is where I post pictures of my food daily. It's just sort of something that I can naturally do. I'll post it either on the news feed, or I'll post it in my stories. So follow me on Instagram if you're there, and you can see the foods that I'm eating. Some of my favorite products I just share with my lifestyle there if you want to go and see how I apply this as a 49-year-old woman who's going through menopause. Okay, last thing before I open it up for questions. If this all sounds very confusing, you don't really know where your hormones are at, I really have two comments for you. First, just keep learning. Be playful with this. One of the things about oxytocin, about raising oxytocin, is you want to be playful. You want to be, you want to take this information and be curious about it and apply it to your life. I think when it comes to nutrition, we get so rigid with our approach, and I really want to encourage you to be playful. Second thing, my absolute most favorite test is something called a Dutch test. A Dutch test is you take 4 urine samples over it's about a 12-hour time period, and we can actually see what's going on with estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. We can see what your adrenals are doing. We can see if you have any of the harmful estrogens. I'm actually one of the medical directors that developed the Dutch test. I want to get her on my Resetter TV so I can share with you how powerful this test is. If you have not had a Dutch test and you are trying to solve this on your own, just put Dutch test in the comments and we will send you a link to it where you can order the test. We'll read it for you. We'll give you some ideas that you can apply these principles using keto and fasting. One of the most helpful tests I've ever seen for women. I will tell you my own journey with the Dutch test. I've been doing keto and fasting for a very long time, and I was still, before my cycle, was getting a lot of anxiety that would kick in a couple of days before. I was spotting. My cycle was getting really heavy. And yeah, I'm 49. A lot of people told me, oh, that's just, because you're going through menopause. And so I ran a Dutch test on myself, and my estrogen, my progesterone, and my testosterone was really low. My adrenals were in good shape, but what I realized is I'd been doing too much keto and fasting. I needed to throw in the variation. So I share this information with you, and when I say it's my favorite topic, I probably should qualify that and say, because I'm living it. I'm living it today. I'm using these principles that I'm teaching you in my own life, and I'm experimenting with them. The minute that I worked on cortisol, the minute I started to feed progesterone the way I just showed you, my cycles actually evened out. I stopped spotting. I stopped having heavy periods. The anxiety went down. It was almost like what appeared to be going into menopause reversed. I started having a much more balanced cycle and experience, a lot more balanced than it was even 5 years ago. So I really, truly give you this information from a place of love and a place of caring for you, because I'm living it. I get it. I totally understand. And one of the things I'm so grateful to Dr. Anna for is that now I'm going to really focus on oxytocin and what can I do to raise oxytocin. So please don't give up on yourself. I'm giving you resources. Your body's a miracle. Women's bodies need to be really looked at differently. We need to approach keto differently. We need to approach fasting differently. If you want more tools on fasting, come into my Resetter group. We fast together once a month. If you want to know how to apply this to yourself and all these tools I'm giving you, come into the academy, and I'll show you one-on-one how we do it in there. If you want a Dutch test, run a Dutch test. So But don't give up on yourself. Please don't give up on yourself. So, questions. What is the Academy? So the Academy, I have two resources for you. The Resetter group is where we fast together. So there's 10,000 people in there, and this is where we are all once a month fasting. So I have 7 different fasts that I teach people. Once a month, we take time to do that. It's a free group on Facebook. The Academy is a closed group. It's a paid group. We've kept the price really low so that people can come in there, and I'm actually answering personal questions in there. I'm coaching people in a group setting. So like I just did a video in there on these control hormones and how people can work on their cortisol and their oxytocin and some strategies around fasting. So I'm in there giving more of a one-on, not necessarily one-on-one, but group coaching. I do a Facebook Live in there once a week to coach my Academy members. I have videos that I've done on how do you reset your health using these principles. So it's a little more intimate experience if you're looking for more information and want to know how to apply it to your life. Here on YouTube, I'm just trying to give you guys some broad-based tools so that you can also apply it to your life. In the Academy, we just get a lot more specific about how it applies to you personally. And because it's a smaller group, I get to know you and we get to have a more intimate experience. I don't know how to explain that any differently, a more community experience. So, Chipotle rice bowl on a feast day is one of the questions. So, yeah, okay. I like Chipotle. I like that they're non-GMO. At least they're trying, or at least they've told me they are. Yeah, and a rice on a feast day would be great. Now, let me just do a little warning sign here. If you're measuring your blood sugar, you may notice the next day that your blood sugar goes up. But what we're trying to do is get you in and out of ketosis. The goal is not to stay in ketosis all the time. So, yeah, I think, and I like that it's non-GMO. I like that they're trying to go organic. So, other questions? Dutch test on the, how do you find the Dutch test, and can men do the Dutch test? Okay, so how do you find the Dutch test? You can go to my webpage, drmindypelz.com, and go, I believe it's under resources, under testing. If you have trouble finding it, just put Dutch test in these comments and one of my team will get in there and send you a link. The Dutch test, when we actually read the Dutch test, me and my staff, we look at it and we report it back to you. And then not only will we tell you everything that's in there, but we're also going to apply it to a keto life. I feel like this is really missing for women, that women don't know how to apply it to keto and fasting. There's a lot of doctors out there, holistic doctors, that are doing a great job of helping people balance hormones, but they don't know how to incorporate keto and fasting into that. So I'm trying to create a bridge there. So once we know your Dutch, once I can look at your Dutch, we can make some really strong, specific recommendations into this keto and fasting lifestyle for you. Like I said, with my, I don't know if I had mentioned this, but my staff member, I ran one of the Dutch tests on her, and she's about 46 years old. All of her hormones were actually really great. It was her adrenals that were burnt out. So it was so cool because we could zero in on, okay, we got to go after cortisol. We got to focus in on cortisol. And yes, I've had men run the Dutch test. So the hormones are not, men have all these hormones that are not unique to women. Low testosterone is a big deal for both a man and a woman. So a lot of times we can find out if they have low testosterone based off the Dutch test. The other thing, and then I'm going to go on a soapbox here for a moment, because this is one of the things I'm really passionate about, is estrogen and the harmful estrogens. It's high doses of estrogen that is causing cancer. And I feel like if we got the Dutch test into everybody's hands, what the Dutch test will tell us is estrogen metabolites. So it'll tell us if you have the harmful estrogens and the protective estrogens. It'll tell me if your cells are detoxifying well enough, and do you need some advice on how to improve something called methylation. It'll tell me if your liver is not breaking down the harmful estrogens well enough. And then we can give you some ideas around breaking down or supporting your liver. It'll tell me if you're producing enough melatonin. Maybe your insomnia isn't a hormonal imbalance, maybe it's a melatonin imbalance. So again, I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, that Dutch test for my own self was like, whoa, it was just like a mirror on my hormones that I'd never really seen before. And it can be that for you as well. So if you're interested in understanding all those hormones, it's a great test. So can you ship it internationally? This is a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. I think we can. It is an easy test to ship. So I will have one of my staff or one of my team get back to you and find out. I'm pretty sure we can, because it is such an easy test to ship. It's an easy test to do. So we will try to get it to those of you that are international. So, okay. With that, other questions that come up if you're watching this at another time period, if after I go live, you can always put them in there. I have a team of people that are coming in and answering those. If you want more of a group experience with this information, come join me in my academy. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to help you with your hormones. I have a lot to say on this subject because I've lived it myself. I really, my heart goes out to you if your hormones are off. I know that anxiety. I know the insomnia. I know the heavy periods. I get the weight gain. Like, I got it, and I've been living that. And this is why I really, as I discover the tools, I really want to bring it back to you. So, and make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Every Thursday, I'm going to be answering the most frequent questions that we have on my YouTube channel. So I'll be here live, and I'll be here to answer anything live that you have. And next week, I'm going to really dive into detoxing and some strategies around detoxing. So stay tuned. I have some great information for you, and I want to make sure you're getting the help. So be sure you subscribe. And if you love what you're seeing, send it out into the world. I really do this so that we can start to get tools into people's hands so that they can drive their own personal health care. We live in a time where one of my favorite it's not a new book, but one of my favorite books is Undoctored, where we truly can educate ourselves to a point where we don't need all the doctors around us. And I want to give you the tools to do that. So please share this out. And as always, never, ever, ever forget that you're living in a miracle, that you can heal from almost anything. You just have to believe in yourself, and you've got to have the tools to do it. So I hope that helps.